Okay. Okay, good morning, everybody. Hope everybody is well. Happy Friday. For those that are tuning in live, for those that are here any other day of the week, thanks for being here. Beautiful day in the neighborhood over here. Ice. It's a winter wonderland in the Northeast. Apparently, it's a winter wonderland across the entire country. So unless you're from like South Florida, California, or San Francisco, you've got snow. My heart goes out to our brothers and sisters in Texas. I hear it's really difficult down there, and may they get everything that they need to stay healthy and safe and survive, and everywhere across the country. Yesterday, we started talking about this concept that is a critical concept in spirituality. Just want to note before we begin that our friend Rob is down in Florida. I think he is suffering with 83-degree weather, I think, and sunny and beautiful. We love you, Rob. Yesterday, we started this concept of the threshold. Let's discuss what that is. And let's just start looking for it. You know, like when you're debating if you should get a certain color car, and then you get the car, and then you look for everyone on the road that has it, and before you know it, like you realize that, oh my gosh, I had this with my minivan. You know, you get the minivan. When I got my minivan, I was like, no guys were driving minivans. And I look around, and all of a sudden, like all these minivans pop out of nowhere. You know when that happens to you? Or what I hope happens today is I hope today you are going to see things that were always in front of you that you never fully saw. And that is the threshold. Understand that depth, meaning, and purpose is difficult. If it were easy, we'd all be doing it all day. It requires levels of concentration. It requires us putting our minds in the right place. It requires us going to a place that's not going to give us immediate hits of pleasure. It requires us to overcome what would be otherwise traits that are not perfect, but we haven't yet worked out. Not easy to be deep. It's not easy to tap into something beyond the physical. It's not easy to say things that are coming from a deep place, to be in a zone. So to get there requires work. But the problem is that when we go from where I am to where I have to go, it's so hard to make that transition. So what you really do if you're living at a professional level is you don't make the transition black to white, white to black. It's not a light switch. Life's not a light switch. Life is like a dimmer. You need a transition point. You need to build a threshold that allows you to go from the world, from your mind in 100 places, to a moment of depth, to a place where you can tap into the spiritual, to a place you can have a conversation eyes to eyes, to a place where you can get lost in the tasks in front of you. You can't just roll into it. It doesn't work like that. Maybe one day, but not when you're starting. Life's gradual. There's a reason why God created a world where the sun rises and sets. It's designed to be gradual. There's a reason why when you walk into days that are very spiritual, at least in Judaism, spiritual days, you don't just roll in, you do something. You mark it, you build a threshold. The day of Shabbat is a very holy day. It is one of the holiest days of the year. Even though it comes every week, it is still incredibly holy. Like Yom Kippur level holy. You don't just roll into Shabbat. You build a threshold. That includes things like lighting candles, which is the symbol for spirituality. That includes things like saying certain prayers and coming home, let's say, and making kiddush, which is a blessing over the wine. All these things that are taking place is supposed to be bringing us into a threshold as we transition from the week to another day entirely. Thresholds. There's a reason why there's a service that is very intricate for marriage. Certain things are said, certain things are done. It's because when you go from the single to married, you need a threshold. You don't just snap your fingers and sign a court document. There's a concept. Right? There's a concept in every physical structure. When you build a home, the doorways have a scroll that would otherwise never get that level of exposure, hanging on the threshold in a specific way with God's name in it. Because what we're doing is we're recognizing that the outside and the inside aren't the same. Outside world, inside world, they're not the same. What takes place outside your home and inside your home is not the same. It even goes deeper. What takes place in your living room as you walk into your bedroom, it's not the same. We're putting thresholds in places because we're reminding ourselves that I have to be in a different mindset. I can't just snap my fingers. I have to walk through something. And if you notice, if you ever seen this, if you do this yourself, or you ever see this, and by the way, people that are Jewish, if you ever walk into a place, look for it now. If you're listening and you're not Jewish, you didn't realize this. I'm going to give you a secret. When you look at certain areas, when you go to a Jewish person's home or work, if you look to the right, when you walk in, you're going to see a hanging thing. It's a mezuzah. When you land in Israel, my good friend Ben Cohen always reminds me, when you land in Israel, what you land in the plane and in the airport, when you walk into the airport, hanging there is a mezuzah. You walk up a block and you see hanging in the homes outside the mezuzah. It's not there just because. It's not an ornament. It's a holy, holy, holy parchment in there. It's there because it reminds us that where you're from and where you're going are two different worlds. And there's a threshold in between. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to kiss it. To show it respect, but also it's an action. That if you do it, it's a conditioning action. It is, so to speak, like Michael Phelps putting on the headphones and going from his locker room to the pool. It doesn't seem like really that important. Who cares? It's music. But let me tell you something. When you mentally prepare to get in that pool and you use the trigger of a song, which from a neuroplasticity says, oh, we're not here anymore. We're not locker room, chilling out, hanging out, relaxed. I'm walking into a pool. I put on a song, my brain goes, we're going into that mode. Our brain says, okay, that's cool. We can do that. Yeah. To the rest of the world, who cares? He puts on his headphones and listen to a song. But to Michael Phelps, he's now walking into a custom-built threshold that allows him to transition from being all over the place, physical material, into being into much more of a spiritual, deeper place. Yeah, the idea of these moments, a Shabbat, candles, Kiddush, the idea of a threshold, the idea of a wedding ceremony, even the idea of a funeral, with all of its specific, it's not just because God needs you to do specific rules and how it works and where it goes. All of that is a transition point. It's a threshold. You're going into a new world. Something's happening. When you see things in between time periods, in between physical locations, notice the reason why it's there is because one of the reasons why it's there is because it's telling you you're walking into a new dimension. Don't bring your old brain. Don't bring the thinking before you got to deepen. That's how you become spiritual. By toggling in these worlds. And it's not if you have this background or that background, you're Jewish, you're not Jewish, you can read Hebrew, you can't read Hebrew, you're this denomination. Stop that. That's all a distraction right now. It's important to be as connected as you can possibly be. It's important to grow in your spirituality. But right now, for this moment, I don't want it to be a distraction. Me and you need to have meaningful thresholds in our lives. Me and you need to tap into currently existing thresholds in a much deeper way. But what we really have to do is build our own threshold. Because we all have parts of our lives that need depth. Now, in the ideal, every aspect of our lives needs depth, but forget that. We'll get there. Right now, we need to identify 1, 2, 3 moments a day where these are the moments where I could go into a deeper place, where I can bring my attention fully to the thing in front of me, where I can quiet my crazy running 24/7 brain so that I could understand what's taking place in between the words, in between the raindrops, the white fire on the black fire, where I can start being productive and not just busy, where I can start being on and not just in. We gotta have these. We gotta have these. And we gotta build thresholds to get them. Because if we build the right threshold and we stick to it, what's going to happen is our brain, just like everything else in our lives, our brain is neuroplastic and it's going to start to learn, whoa, I get this. We're doing this. We're about to do this. Oh, we are preparing the table, not with my headphones or phone on. I'm making breakfast. This is my time. I'm making my cup of coffee this particular way. I'm getting ready for the conversation with my spouse. It's going to take place at this time of day. Oh, my alarm gets off at this time and I do this thing in the morning. This is what I do every single morning from this time to this time before my day begins. I'm building a threshold. I'm at my office and my this goes off, it's this time, and I move my papers this way, or I get up and I take a walk around the office and I make myself another cup of coffee or whatever, and I sit back down and it's between this hour and this hour. We have to build the thresholds that we construct so that when we want to go places, we don't have to snap our fingers. We walk through the threshold. And we train ourselves that as soon as this threshold comes, it's going to take me to a deeper place. And I'll protect myself on the way out. By the way, there's a threshold on the way out too. Exactly. When you come in, you say Kiddush. But when you leave, you make Havdalah. And when you leave, there's a mezuzah still on the door. And there's thresholds on the way out as well. One of the greatest thresholds on the way out is an alarm clock. This phone thing is an amazing threshold. Because when you sit down with somebody and you can't sit forever, you set it and you say, send me a reminder in 30 minutes or in 10 minutes. And now you're free because the phone will tell you when it's over. We're using the world to create time boxes, space boxes. So when I walk into these time zones, when I walk into these space zones, I get to be a different human being. This is how we hack our system to get deeper. Now, God's been trying to do that for a long time, which is why he builds these things for us. That's why Shabbat starts with fire and ends with fire. Not starts with wine, ends with wine. It's not just like, hey, that's a coincidence. Like, who did that? God. He's like, yeah, I'm building you a box You walk in, threshold, you come out, threshold. That's why things begin. That's why things end. That's why these things happen for. Because what God understands is that you can't be necessarily deep every single time. So at least there'll be periods of our day where we'll walk into something and we'll come out of something. And if I need to adapt to make sure that I'm going to do something to protect myself against pulling in the outside world and the inside, I'm going to put it in my threshold. I'm going to put the box where I place my phone. I'm going to say the line that I said to myself when I walk into my house. I'm going to stop in front of my house for a moment, take a deep breath, and remind myself how lucky I am. Say the thing, remember the story. I'm going to walk into this part of I'm going to remember it. I'm going to be writing this. The book will be waiting for me in the morning. So when I go to bed at night, I don't got to find the book to write the journal. I prepare myself. I go to this place when I need to think. I go to this place when I need to work. I put in a little prayer before I pick up the phone. Every single time, same words, before I pick up my phone to make my phone call. It's always at this time, between this time and this time, always. And I tell my team, my assistant, to don't block my calls. I block my calendar so that nobody books anything. It's always the same time. And when the time comes, I always clear my desk, turn off my phone, start my, whatever it is, it's your threshold. Figure out why we can't get to a deep place. What's the block? And build a protection at the threshold. Build a door. Because sometimes you need a door to make sure people don't get in. Or to make sure the wind doesn't get in. Because it's cold outside. And in order to keep the house warm, all you need is one little piece of the house, a little door that just blocks it. This is the work of depth, of greatness. The work isn't like hoping that it works out for us. It's not like that's a cool concept. That'd be amazing if I had that. But like, it's been 20 years. Of course, I would have loved a better relationship with this person. But the internet. Those were the days before Instagram when nobody had anything to do and they got home. And me and my grandfather would sit in the backyard on the porch, drinking lemonade and talking. But the kids today, man, forget it. What are we going to do? It's the generation. It's the generation. I'm telling you, when I was growing up, life was perfect. When I was growing up, man, I mean, politicians never lied. Everyone was amazing. Everyone was happy. Relationships went forever. I mean, remember the good old days? Remember those days? Today, forget about it. This doesn't work. Yeah, there are challenges today that we didn't have yesterday, of course. But if we're here today, it's because God is saying, no. Your soul needs you. Build it stronger. There are things that you can do today you couldn't do yesterday. Remember, you couldn't see the person around the country? You can see them now. That's pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool. You didn't have it 2 generations ago. Use it. You can be deep in ways that you couldn't have been deep 20 years ago. Use it. But also adapt the doors and adapt the thresholds. If you're using an old threshold, yeah, stuff's seeping in. If you're using your old windows, it's probably letting in the wind. Just upgrade the windows. That's the challenge that we have, to be constructing thresholds around the most important parts of our lives. To realize that it is the habits that we put into place that's going to give us the depth that we crave. It's not the people. It's on us. And when we understand what's blocking us and we build it at the threshold, and we take the things that give us the easiest chance for depth and we put them behind those doors and we practice it and adapt it and construct it, This is the work of life. This is building our lives. This is the castle of our mind, which becomes the pathway to our soul. That's the joy of being alive. Every day is a challenge to get a little bit better. Every time you fall, you can pick yourself up and say, I didn't know that about myself. That was a good one. I'm not failing again, or I'm going to try not to, but like, I didn't know that. I came out of left field. Okay, let's pick myself up and let's adapt. I didn't realize they were like that. I didn't realize she was upset about that. I didn't realize this would be harder than I thought it would be. Okay. And when we get into construction a little bit. Every day is a challenge and every day is an opportunity. Until one day you don't even realize it. Your brain is bringing you into places that you never thought possible for you. Because remember, if your eyes are open, the reason is because you are being powered by divine energy. You have more depth than you will ever need for the rest of your human existence. Nobody doesn't have it. You just got to go out and find it. All right. Think about it this weekend. No matter where you are, whatever level of observance you are, Jewish, not Jewish, don't matter. Whatever level of observance, think about it. If you happen to be keeping Shabbat, if you happen to be doing that, pay special attention to the thresholds and appreciate them. No matter where you are, this weekend, put together a threshold on your own. Find a moment of depth that you want to have and see if you can construct your own threshold. Let me know about it. Email me. I'd love to hear about it. Okay. Have an incredible, incredible weekend. Good Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom. With God's help, I cannot wait to see you again next week.